Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things to talk about with you and other people, right? Is this misconception that we have to keep up with the Joneses and have to follow suit. And I think highlighting that the fear of missing out is something I still experience. We talked a little bit about that before, where it's like, are we falling behind? But it's that reminder of where our kids are at, developmentally speaking. My kids specifically haven't even reached 10, 11, 12. So it's like, for me, I didn't start doing select travel sports until I was 13. And at that point, it got pretty intense. But I think as we're...
And did you make it, Travis? Did you make it to a high level?
I did. Eventually, I made my way to a high level. And I was really fortunate. I think one of the parts of my story is just the community I grew up in, the group of friends that I had that I played with from YMCA, rec league stuff, all the way through Little League, and then on through our senior year of high school. So to me, this concept of youth sports is a very powerful one. And I think that the idea of community and how that's being built around your kids through this experience and stuff like we talked about, man, being able to help people out with rides and just knowing, everybody's overwhelmed. And I think the more that we can come together and help each other, it's going to help everybody in the end.
I want to set the tone for everybody listening. Like, the first time me and Travis ever talked, he's like, "Hey, give me a call," or "Can I call you? I got something I want to give you." We talked for an hour. Like, it was one of those conversations where, like, we set aside 15 minutes to talk to each other, and an hour later, we're both like, "Hey, we got stuff to do today. We probably need to hang up, or else we." So if we go a little long today, I'm just letting you know, like, that could happen because that's what happens when we talk to each other. Today's a little different though than most episodes because I don't want to go straight into how we can help our kids, because I think your story is a powerful one that helps frame this entire conversation and gives a kind of a tangible example of what we're kind of fighting against in this whole sports thing. So if this can happen to someone who has reached the levels you've reached, then it's going to happen to our kids just naturally, because at some point, every kid's career is going to end. And you told me when we first talked that when your career ended, you realized that your identity and your self-worth were directly tied to your performance. So can you take us back to that moment when it's like, all right, I'm done playing. Who the heck am I? Like, what did it feel like to recognize that? And how old were you when you recognized that?
33 or 34. Okay. I had started working with my now partner, Seth Taylor, who's a therapeutic life coach. And Seth was the first person I'd worked with in that space who really opened my eyes to how that identity formation took place throughout youth sports. And then, being able to play professionally for 16 seasons, a lot goes into, building that up. And I had my wife and I had our third child that year in Gwinnett, Georgia. I was playing for the Braves AAA affiliate and was in a place in my career where I was a bench player. I was there to mentor younger players and just kind of had the reality moment of, what am I really doing here? And I'm chasing this dream of getting back to the major leagues, thinking that that's going to validate everything that I've done for my entire career of playing baseball professionally and amateur. And as I started to unpack this stuff with Seth, I just lost my father. So that's a big shift, right, in the family dynamic when you kind of become the head of the family, even though in a lot of ways I had took on that role at a very young age. And it was really unpacking the multiple layers, and I'm still unpacking this in therapy and will continue for years to come, because I recognize being diagnosed with complex PTSD and learning more about some other stuff that I've been not officially diagnosed with, but understanding how this stuff kind of builds up over time. And for me, the idea of being the baseball player was always something I wanted from a young age, and I got to achieve that goal of playing in the major leagues at 20 years old. And then as my career went on a roller coaster ride, more of the self-doubt, more of the struggles mentally and emotionally started to surface, but I also did a very good job of suppressing those. So it was finally at the point of my end of my career where I had to go back and think through and work through a lot of these experiences that I had as a professional athlete, but then it tied back into the deeper childhood experiences, which we'll get to, later, but it just understanding that I don't want anybody to feel bad for me because I was a Major League Baseball player. That's not the point of this. The point is, we as athletes, and I think this applies to anybody listening that is a professional and in a job, we identify ourselves by our career title, our salary, our, what it is that we do versus who we really are. And that was a big differentiation that I had to start making, is who is the man that I wanted to be outside of the baseball player. Because for many years of my adult life, baseball was the number one thing. It was the number one priority. It's what really drove the ship, instead of having those clear, defined core values, and who do I want to be as a husband, who do I want to be as a father, and who do I want to be as a person in the community.
Yeah, and the reason I joke at the beginning of this about, like, if this can happen to you, it can happen to anyone. And you said you didn't start playing select or travel till like 12 or 13. We've got kids like making the 5U All-Stars and going travel at 6 years old and stuff like that. And we as parents wrap their identity around who they are as a ball player. And you see recruiting profiles for 8U kids who are trying to get NIL deals or get into these camps. And it's like, we inadvertently, I think it's inadvertently, put this pressure on our kids and put this identity onto them, as in, like, they're a 2034 athlete, or they're a basketball player, or they're a baseball player. And that becomes not just their personality, but it becomes their identity. And so then when it comes crashing down, or when they don't make the team, or God forbid their interests change, it's like, who am I?